Excellent. 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. I guess do a quick roll call. Just did that. I'm Brian Green.
Robert Sixia.
Paula Machado.
And hi, Kelly. You're taking over today.
Yes, sorry. Yes, Kelly Highland, Deputy Director of Public Health, filling in for Karen.
The next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes, and I think there was a small error in the meeting minutes, which is that on the second page under the heading Sunoco gas station appeal, the last sentence seems to have been cut and pasted from earlier on regarding the request for variance for restaurants.
Okay.
It's just, it doesn't, the last sentence doesn't need to be there. It's just an error. Or the last two sentences.
Okay. Okay.
But with that change, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, Bonnie, we get to you a little earlier today.
Okay, good. Thank you. Boy, you guys were busy last week. So I have three fairly quick things to talk to you about. So the first is just an FYI that we have begun seeing products in stores in Somerville and in the other 5 cities that are part of the collaborative that are called Newport non-menthol. And the manufacturer has given letters to the retailers like they're supposed to. We require that they have letters from manufacturers stating that the products that they're selling are not flavored. So R.J. Reynolds did provide that paper. However, Chelsea recently decided to call this product a flavored product, which we do believe it is. The lawyers who work with us and so on really believe that there is chemicals put into this to make it taste like menthol. And in fact, the advertising says like menthol smokers, we've got your back. And it looks exactly like the other Newport package of cigarettes. So in California, the AG's office did come out and say that they believe that it's flavored and they banned it. So Cheryl Sabaro went before the Chelsea Board of Health recently, and they decided that they would be willing to kind of put themselves out there and be the city that gets the lawsuit, because we know it's going to come. So a letter went out to Chelsea retailers saying that this product is believed to be flavored and they can no longer sell it, even with the letter. So just wanted you to know that for future reference, you know, there will be a lawsuit, and Chelsea's going to be the first ones to do it. So, okay.
Bonnie, just on that point.
Yes.
It seems like, so Chelsea's gonna, you know, take action and see what legal challenges are. Is our city's position one of, well, let's wait and see how that goes, or similarly, like, you know, explore a potential, you know, ban of, you know, these new Newports, or just kind of sit and wait for the litigation to play out?
Well, I think you can decide to be part of it if you want to, but you know, we're not pushing boards to do anything yet. So like Chelsea's cutoff date is June 1st. So the letter said you have until June 1st to sell down these products. After that, you will be ticketed. And Cheryl and Lisa and Chris, the lawyers, you know, that work with us, believe that as soon as somebody gets ticketed, it will trigger the lawsuit. And there's already been a letter that went out to a retailer in Revere, because that retailer also owns a store in Chelsea. And they showed me the letter when I came in to do an inspection in Revere. So the retailers are understanding that this is probably going to happen. We've been telling them that this product is likely flavored. So anyway, the short answer to your question, Robert, is, it's up to the board. I mean, probably the lawsuit will happen and then it will be over, hopefully. But you could decide to send it out too. Some of the other cities are probably going to do that. Send out a letter and say the same thing.
Yeah, my interest would be obviously more like centered on the public health effect of these products being available,
Yes.
right? And, all the policy considerations we've made in the flavored ban.
Mhm.
So, I have an interest in, like, I wouldn't want this product to appear and then there's some public health damage.
Right.
I'm a little more of the mind of, if we ban it, I mean, the court can go either way, right? They can either leave the ban in place until they decide or knock down the ban until they decide.
Mhm.
I feel that it's, I don't want to make that decision on my own without hearing from Brian and, Karen and Paula on, like, because this will take resources to enforce, and legal's resources as well at the solicitor's office. So I'm just one voice of, that group in chorus. And Matt, Kelly, feel free to opine as well, or maybe it's next month's, thing.
Mhm. It is one of the concerns is that, some people may have stopped smoking because we put the ban in. They're not smoking Newport menthols anymore. And now there's this product that's, advertising actually saying, we've got your back. Come on, you can have this product now. Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? Anyway, yeah.
Is there ever like a way to with our regs or whatnot to say like menthol like to broaden it? Because I'm just like, okay, we put out this fire and then is there going to be like another one that keeps popping up? They're just, I don't know.
Well,
I'm
that's a
almost positive that what we talked about was that no flavored, the whole thing went back to when they were making grape flavored and root beer flavored nicotine products, which are obviously for kids. And so we were going to make a policy that said no flavorings. And then there was this historical, like, well, you can't do flavorings, but you can't outlaw menthol because menthol has like historical precedence of being a flavor that was okay. And that's what pushed us as a board to say, well, why do we allow menthol in the first place? And so Somerville went, I think, first on this one to outlaw menthol because it was a double standard of flavoring. So it seems to me our regulations were quite clear that it's no flavoring, period. So if it's not menthol, but it's still flavored, it's still flavored.
Paula, did you want to say
We
something
also talked
before I
about,
respond?
yeah, if I remember, because I was fired up about this at that meeting that we had. It was like an all hands meeting at the out in East Somerville. We had everyone came, but strictly we were very, very clear on advertising what kind of flavor. There was like supposed to be no labels of it. So I don't think we could have been any more transparent than we were.
One of the problems, I hear you completely and I agree, and I'd be happy to have us go ahead and send out the letter and say that this is a flavored product and we won't allow it. The problem is the definition of flavor. So RJ Reynolds is claiming that this product does not meet the definition of flavor, which is an additive to, I don't know, I forget the legal language, but that's the argument. They're claiming that it is not a flavored product. So,
but yet they have to use the word menthol. It's crazy, but
well, they're calling it non-menthol. It's a non-menthol.
Just because non-menthol doesn't mean it's non-flavored.
Right. Yep, exactly.
So strawberries, non-banana.
So false marketing there.
Right. Yep.
I mean, I think their lawyers are probably pretty good at figuring out what a flavoring is, but it might, or whatever the regulations are around flavoring. But I think if a flavor is a flavor, if it has flavor that isn't what it normally comes with tobacco, then I think it's going to be a tough case. In any event, for us to send a letter saying that we believe this is a flavor and we strongly recommend people don't sell it in Somerville, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do the same level of going and removing it from stores and stuff, right?
No,
Right.
you could do whatever, you could send out a letter like that if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good first step, just like an initial, like clarification of interpretation from the board. That we believe non-menthol cigarettes are still banned under our regs.
Okay.
So,
Until
just-
proven otherwise,
It
that's
kinda-
our any of the regs.
Yeah. Just an added piece to
And then-
this. Oh, go ahead, Paula.
No, I was gonna say then it also just supports the surroundings, like the whole purpose. You know what I mean? Like I know Chelsea's doing it, but it supports of not being it. Like the more noise we make, obviously, the better.
Yes, I would just say that that Chelsea does not, the letter that went out in Chelsea, which I can send to Karen and Kelly, and they can get it to you, but the letter does not say that the Board of Health decided that this was a flavored product or anything like that. It says, I forget the exact wording, but it's kind of vague, and it just says that that we have determined. So the letter was from myself and from the director of the health department in Chelsea, and didn't mention the board. They sort of, the lawyers felt that that was the best strategy to start with. So I can send that to Kelly and Karen afterwards, and we can talk further. Okay, so should I move on to the next thing?
sure.
Okay. So Matt is gonna show you, well, let me back up. Let me just tell you what we're talking about in this next part. That is reg changes, model reg changes that we'd like the board to consider. So it wasn't that long ago that we updated the regulations, but as you know, things change daily with regulations, sometimes with language. So there's new model regs and they have a lot of language changes, but we don't have to talk about that tonight. We wanted to talk about specifically two pieces of the model regulations that we've come before you with before, and both of them you weren't thinking it was a good idea at the time. But so one is the retail density, which is the reg that talks about no new permits being issued within 500 feet of an existing permitted retailer. And the reason that's become more concerning to me and to Matt is because vape stores, which we thought in the beginning was not a good role model after business model after the new regs came in, and we thought that they'd pretty much go out of business quickly and nobody would be thinking they were a good business model. But that hasn't been the case, and I get calls literally weekly from stores, potential retailers rather, wanting to come in and open up vape shops. And without us doing something more with the density and this within 500 feet of an existing retailer, there's really no basis for saying no. So right now, for example, across the street from Harvard Vanguard on Holland Street, a vape store went in, and another vape store wants to go into, and I just had to approve it because there's no reason not to, right down in Davis Square beside Mike's restaurant. So that's a really, short distance between the two of those. And so I just wanted to bring that. We have a visual of where all of the tobacco retailers are. So Matt can show you that on the shared screen.
Yeah,
So
I don't
you
know,
just-
Kelly, can I share or can you share on your end?
Let me see.
I've never shared on GoTo. Hello,
Yeah,
everyone, by the way.
Let me see.
It just gives you a little visual of how many there are and the clusters and so on.
Let me get it up. All right, let me try.
Okay,
Can folks see
So-
this?
Yep.
you
Okay.
see? Okay.
Yep.
So all of those red dots are places where there are retail tobacco stores.
Could you make it full screen, Kelly?
Whoops.
That's good. We can see it. So I think what Bonnie was talking about, Bonnie, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
we're seeing some clustering, particularly in the Davis Square area. On the map, it's kind of middle left. Yep, right there. The clustering in Magoon Square to the right a little bit, right, a little bit more to the right. Up
Sorry.
right there. Yep. And then down in Union Square at the bottom, where there's a lot of shops in a small area. And then it also runs along Broadway, you know, basically from East Somerville all the way to Magoon Square. And you don't have to go very far in any of these places to have a tobacco store in your face, essentially. And so the concern, again, is access and exposure, and having these retail places in places where they can be sold because they're not within 500 feet of a school, but we're starting to see them kind of predominantly in those squares. And the concern is that unless there's any mechanism in which Bonnie can say, well, there's already a lot in that area, we really shouldn't be promoting another one. We might be forced to have to put another one in because there's nothing to stop us from saying otherwise. Is that correct, Bonnie?
That's correct. Yeah. And just to add, you could pick whatever you wanted as the distance. So for example, 500 feet is probably the best recommendation, but you could go as far as 1,000 feet, or, you know, it kind of would be up to the board how they wanted to do that. And in addition, the other piece of it is the caps. So the cap on permits. We've mentioned that before. So there's a basic cap and there's an advanced cap. With the basic cap, it kind of just says, okay, Somerville has X amount of tobacco permits, and that's going to be the cap. And so we will never have more than that many permits. And if somebody asks for a permit and there are none available, we would put them on a wait list. And then when one became available, you know, they would be called and told that they could have one. An advanced cap would be that a certain amount of permits are decided upon. And then when a store either goes out of business or closes up for some reason, then that permit would be retired, basically. It would just go away, so that you would be continuously lowering the amount of permits available in the city.
That gets lowered to like 0 in theory, right? Or is
In
this?
theory, eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, there is one city right now in the, no, two actually, there's two in the collaborative that have done it. Winthrop did it first. They're down to 16 permits in Winthrop.
The
And
advanced cap.
sorry?
The advanced cap, you were
The
saying?
advanced cap. Yeah. And Chelsea just did a cap. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look. I can't remember if this was the advanced or not. I think it is the advanced, but I couldn't say for sure. Yep. Okay, so just in line with that, a couple of things. So we could have Cheryl write up draft regs that, you know, show those two things for whatever we decide. She would do that by putting, you know, red line in there and showing what we have versus what the model reg would be, so that you could see it visually. And then at first I thought we didn't have to have a public hearing for this, but I checked with her and yeah, you would have to have one. So that would be the steps down the road.
Okay. I'm happy to give my initial thoughts. I think it's, kind of similar to the other one. I'm generally supportive of kind of limiting the availability of it. I think the advance cap is certainly interesting as well. I think it strikes a nice balance of, people who are in, businesses that are in, and that we're not like, they're not being aggrieved, and that it's kind of well known for any new participants. That's just not an option. So I think that's an interesting idea, and it's one I, tentatively support, but there's so many other factors here. That's just my initial reaction to it.
Mhm. Also, Cheryl would be happy to come and speak further to you if there's any, other questions you want to think about with her.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Karen too. And, I don't know if you've heard anything, Kelly or Matt, from Karen, if this is something you've spoken about internally and if there's been interest in doing this. Again, I'm just conscious of like time, resources, priorities going on right now, because this is just more work, important work.
I guess I'm kind of puzzled by the original assumption was that because in order to be a vape store, you had to be 21 to get in, and that there wasn't that many people who would be starting smoking at the age of 21 or starting vaping at the age of 21. So, so if there's a market here, and the stores are obviously coming into Somerville because they think there's a market here, and the people who are using them are in fact 21 and older and using a legal substance. I'm not loving the idea of vast marketing and the signs that go up on the street that say vape shop here, and I'm more concerned about the advertising that's happening to the community that's sort of normalizing it for kids than I am about the stores themselves. So, I mean, it's a sad thing that retail shops are sort of disappearing, and that so much shopping is going online that what ends up filling the city streets is whatever is the flavor of the month. So a couple of years ago, there was a phone store on every block, and now there's a vape store in every corner. And then I assume most of them will disappear over the next 2 years when it shakes out over who's going to be left. But I get that there's a certain just overall prevalence of these in communities, that there's 63 vape shops in Davis Square. That kind of conveys that it's a thing, but I don't know if that really is what's causing people to start vaping.
I guess for me, I'd like to know what our like policy priorities and strategies are, because what Bonnie's doing is it would lower, at some point in the distant future, lower the availability of this to, few to, in theory, none, if like all these businesses decide to transfer, which is, priority number one. Brian, if you're concerned about like, youth advertising and exposure to it, agreed. It's a concern. The other thought that came up as well, and Bonnie, I don't know if you were aware of this, but Mark Gottlieb from the Public Health Advocacy Institute sent an email to me that I had sent along to Karen and team about, a model of, tobacco control where instead of being age restricted, it's birth date restricted.
Yes.
Right.
That was the third thing that I was going to talk to you about. Yes. The Public Health Institute has an online video about what they did in Brookline and why they think it's a good idea. And so I was going to suggest that that you look at that if you're interested in that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think like it's not that we can't tackle a lot of these, but you know, I guess I just want to get a sense of like, you know, I can certainly have my voice, but like, where's the city on like what our priorities should be, and you know, what we want to dedicate time in? Because you know, if this is going to take time to do regs and stuff, but then next year, you know, actually we want to change it up to, you know, a birthday restricted policy, like, you know, because a novel problem came up or a novel thing came up, I'd rather just think about strategy instead of maybe being reactive, you know? So
Mhm.
I feel that there just needs to be like global thinking on what the problem is and what our strategy is.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I am in favor of the, you know, generally a lot of these tools. I'd rather be focused on what we're doing.
Mhm.
I haven't discussed with Karen her thoughts on it. I don't know, did Bonnie or Matt kind of get a sense for where she was at in terms of the policy or reg changes?
Not particularly about the date of birth policy, but more so I think about the model regulations. I think those are the strategy that MTCP supports, and that's what Bonnie works off of. So I think if we are able to get the 6 cities to be as unified as possible in those regs, which would include, you know, the buffer zones and the caps that Bonnie was talking about, I think that would be the immediate thing that we would want to move on. And then I think we need to do a little bit more research into the data, the date of birth stuff, because it's so new in Brookline. And it's not really something that MTCP is really pushing at this point. Right, Bonnie?
That's right. They don't feel, they feel like it's an okay strategy, but they really believe that the model regs is the best strategy at this point. But you know, I'm thinking maybe it makes sense to have Cheryl come to one of the meetings, and just because, you know, she's been doing this for over 30 years and has a clear sense, I think, of maybe the ability to answer some of these nuances that we're thinking about. Would you be interested in that?
Bonnie, I'd be like, I'd
Yep.
always welcome seeing Cheryl, but I'd be more interested before seeing Cheryl on like where we want to go. You know, and maybe it's multiple things, maybe it's one thing. I feel like we just need a bit of like, these are our priorities. This is what the city would support. This is what we want to tackle. And then like get kind of a, you know, a sense of goals to then go after.
Okay.
I mean, but again, I don't know, Paula, Brian, like, you know.
I just wanted to chime in.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, finish.
No, that was it. Yeah.
So if I'm understanding everything, so we're talking about our concern with them opening more stores, correct?
Yes.
If that was the start of this?
More vape stores coming into Somerville,
Right.
yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm so anti-vape, all that, but I feel like, I'm not saying it's out of our hands. It's not, we can't solve it, but I feel it's so far-fetched right now and so far ahead. Like, I think our focus is regulations. As far as trying to stop opening stores, I think it's going to be hard, but this is just a comparison. I'm just thinking out loud. Like, I know just from working in the industry back in the day, like you can only provide so many alcohol licenses to bars and stuff, like for distances. Can we moving forward do that? Do you know, even though like I saw all those red dots and that horrified me, but I don't know. I'm just thinking like incorporate that in the regulations. If we're going to start it too, it wouldn't be a bad idea, because that's a way to, I feel like, to stop at least opening more.
Yeah,
If that makes sense. I don't know if I'm getting,
that's what
if
some
I'm
of
getting
these
far-fetched
caps.
here.
No, you're right on target, Paula. That's what some of these caps would do.
And I
They
feel like
would-
that's something quick
Yeah.
we can do, and then focus on regulations. Like, you know what? We have this, like when we did the anti-menthol, flavored products, and like just get right to the target. And you know what? So many radiuses. The people that have already opened, like I think Rob, you said this, like your grandfather in, but moving forward as of today, you cannot open up a store next to so many feet away or whatever it is. I don't know how the alcohol thing does it, but I know it's a thing. I don't know, just a food for thought.
Mhm.
If I can add
I-
one more thing, if you don't mind. I think one of the factors that has to be considered in this is that as much as we have the flavor ban from Massachusetts, Somerville did go beyond in that we also restricted tobacco flavored nicotine to 21 plus stores. So in all the other cities that Bonnie works with, you could still purchase a tobacco flavored nicotine, like Juul, for example, in like a 7-Eleven, like a non-age specific place. Where in Somerville, you can only get those in 21 plus stores. So if you're going into any of these other convenience stores, you're not seeing tobacco flavored in there because we consider tobacco as a flavor. I know, as it sounds ridiculous as it sounds, for nicotine. And so there is kind of this market, I think, being created by that, because essentially the only places you can get vape in Somerville would be a 21 plus store. So if people are seeing it as an opportunity to make money, I think that might be another reason why we're seeing some other vape stores pop up, knowing that only two 21 plus stores in Somerville sell vapes right now. Right, Bonnie?
It's
Two-ish.
There's three. No, there's three now. There's
I
three.
thought all those red dots were vape stores.
Sorry, say it again.
Those are all
All the
tobacco
dots
licensed.
were vape stores.
They are vape stores.
No, all the red dots were tobacco licensees. They
Oh,
weren't
yeah,
all
those
vape
are,
stores.
no, those are not vape stores. Those are just tobacco stores.
Okay.
They're convenience stores or gas stations or whatever, but they have a tobacco permit. Yeah,
Correct.
not,
But they don't, my recollection about vape stores is that our policy was that if they are selling vape, then that's all they can sell, right? They're not selling marijuana accessories and pipes and whatever. It's not, they're not selling t-shirts. They're selling.
well, I find them selling those sometimes, but yes, they're not supposed to. No, so, yeah, that is regulated, that they can only sell products that are incidental to tobacco or smoking.
So we're talking about, so this regulation we're talking about, we're not talking about tobacco licenses now. We're talking about vape store licenses.
Well, you could do that. Yes, that could be one way. When I'm talking about the model regulations, I'm talking about tobacco permits in general, which
Oh, okay.
include vapes. But if you wanted to separate it out and say there could only be X amount of vape shops, you could do that too.
No, I'm good. I just was confused.
Okay. Yeah, I
Vape-
want to make sure I made it clear. Yeah. Okay.
what profound thoughts do I have? I mean, so I have seen no vape stores going to one vape store, going to two, to going to three. Like they are in fact everywhere I travel everywhere. And they feel like the new cell phone stores. So I haven't been in any to see what else they're selling in them. And but I assume like I said, I assume there's a market for this because I'm not, that's what I was saying about the regulations. I'm not sure we can, especially if we pass legislation that say that you can't get vape materials anywhere but in vape stores. And then also you go to vape stores, assuming these are adults who are 21 who are making and above who are making the choice. I'm not loving that they're doing it, but it's a conceptual problem. But I do think that tobacco licenses and liquor licenses are things that we've been historically regulating a lot. So I think it's perfectly fine to say that we don't want to keep selling tobacco licenses, in part because we expect that tobacco should be a decreasing portion of the profit of any industry in Somerville. Less kids are doing it, and that's the theory, then they should be less marketable.
So I think what I'm understanding you're saying is that they're kind of, I hadn't thought of it that way, to tell you the truth, that, so we are thinking that you might be willing to think of deciding that there would only be a certain amount of tobacco permits. And those tobacco permits do include vape. So I hadn't separated them out in my mind that way, but you're absolutely right. They were kind of lumped together.
So, I mean, maybe that's worth talking to Cheryl and then having her
Uh-huh.
come back and weigh in around that.
Okay. Yep.
And we can talk like strategically internally to see like where we want to go, kind of that big picture vision. The other thing to keep in mind too with the map is just understanding with those clusters, the neighborhoods and stuff that they're in, and just thinking of equity within that map as well. And so I think allowing for retail density will help, I guess, with reducing some of those health disparities in those specific neighborhoods amongst, you know, folks that are marginalized and, you know, heavily hit with the advertising for tobacco products. So just kind of keeping that in mind when we look at those maps.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kelly. Yep.
And this is a completely tangent, but I did bring it up already, which is that I thought as part of our regulation, there were strict requirements about what kind of advertising you could do in a vape store, just like adult use marijuana that we were saying you can't advertise. But I definitely see the sandwich boards outside saying, you know, vape and like blinking letters and stuff.
Yeah.
I believe that's not okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant to, that's what I was trying to say, like when we were so transparent as far as advertising, like we were very clear on like all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even if locally we're not advertising, just the tobacco companies advertising to our, especially like our BIPOC community. And then if we have increased accessibility in one neighborhood where they could go and access it, then we're doing them a disservice, I think, for making healthier choices. But
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have enough to?
Okay. And then, yeah, and I already said, so the third one was the tobacco-free generation that Robert spoke about. And again, it's not an MTCP priority, but certainly if you wanted to entertain that, we would again figure out how to do that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in exploring it. Yeah.
Sorry, Robert, I didn't hear you. Could you say it again?
I am interested in hearing more and discussing that at future meetings.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your attention. So we'll get Cheryl to come and we'll talk more about this. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that it for you too, Matt?
Yep, that's the end of me. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paula.
Kelly, I think you have the heavy lift of doing Karen's updates.
So I'm going to kind of read from her notes here for some of her stuff. So from the last meeting, her and Nick are working on the tattoo permit information in terms of comparisons from other communities for the June meeting. So for now, ISD will hold on the renewal permit fee. The budget process, so FY24, we take this as their scheduled budget for June 14th hearing, City Council. And we are waiting for the mayor's budget, which will include support for any or all of the proposed new initiatives, so those PIRs that were discussed at previous Board of Health meetings. So as soon as the mayor has her budget, Karen will forward along to you all. We are going to have some public health interns this summer. I'll be hosting one who'll be working on a variety of projects and doing our annual report for the board, getting some data from all of our divisions, and helping with some opioid settlement fund community engagement work and group data that has been working on. And then also
Hey,
Karen.
Paula, you got to unmic.
Let me see if I can I? Oh, there she goes. Okay. And then Karen will be hosting a couple of interns as well to do accreditation exploration and then climate resiliency planning with our internal city departments. So on that note, with climate resiliency, I went to the Public Health Preparedness Summit a couple weeks ago in April, and it was all about like building resiliency after our COVID-19 fun times. And so it was a really great, because it really wasn't super focused on COVID-19. We've kind of, so I got to learn a lot more about different programs that have popped up in terms of what to do now post-pandemic in a sense. So a lot of best practices on a community health worker program, especially in Oklahoma. They have a very robust program that I've been working with some folks in Oklahoma. And then also tomorrow I'll be meeting with a woman in Nebraska who has this climate and health resiliency coordinator position, which is almost like working in tandem with our climate change folks. And I believe they're under OSPCD. I still don't really understand that whole division, but so somewhere where we would have that kind of shared vision on how we can support, especially our marginalized folks, with dealing with climate change and on health. And so we would like this intern to help us with drafting a lunch and learn with our community partners on some like strategies for doing this approach. And then also analyzing some data. So we've reached out to our EMS, so Chief Breen over in Fire, to see how just any data on like heat related health issues. And so almost like syndromic surveillance type stuff, and working with CHA as well to kind of get that data to see who is being affected, and then ways that we can do some interventions. We kind of have an understanding of really who is our older adult population, folks who live alone, our unhoused population, but it would be good to get some data together too to support that. And then Nancy and her team, her youth coordinator, are very, very busy in interviewing and placing about 200 high school students in the mayor's summer jobs program. So that's moving along. And I think that's it. We're wrapping up health communication officer interviews, and then also the community health worker manager interviews as well. So hopefully we'll have some new folks joining our team. Any questions? Or?
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Climate resilience is good. All right, I think that's our agenda.
Very good.
Nobody else says it? Oh, I guess, so a couple things. One is the next meeting is June 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, that works.
I can tell you now that August is not going to work for me. I don't know
We
if
sometimes skip July or August, right? Depending on if it's like an urgent matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that mid-July, I'm expecting my first kid. So if the meeting's around that, I've, might be a little busy. So
Maybe August is going to be tough for you too.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, it's an hour or two. So, I don't want to close that one out.
Not
But
last month.
if we normally don't do August, yeah, we can take that off.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk to Karen in June about just July and August. Okay.
Yep. I mean, 10 years ago, we didn't do July and August. During COVID, we did July, August. We did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like when I first started, which was back in 2007, the summers were like kind of a wash.
Yeah.
Unless there was something.
All right. Well, just a heads up then. So we are meeting in June. Sarah's item.
Yeah, June 15th, still good with me.
Nobody else has it. And I officially want to go on record as saying congratulations, Robert.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you. Haritha says baby's probably mine, so that's a good sign.
That's good.
You will find whole new
Yes.
whole new aspects of your personality and life you never knew before.
I've heard it's
Bags under my eyes tonight. It was up at 4:15. Woohoo!
All right, with that, 6:47, I call this meeting to adjourn.
I second it.
All right, see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Kelly.
Bye, guys. Thanks.